Class size refers to the number of students in a classroom. In the special ed world, there's nothing in ed code that limits the number of students with IEPs in a classroom. The only way to limit that number is through the collective bargaining agreement. So let's look at two different scenarios that cover this. 1. You have a special ed teacher teaching special day class with 20 students with IEPs. Is this legal? The answer is yes. It's definitely not an ideal situation, but it is legal. CTA policy has recommendations in the organizational handbook. You can find this policy and more on cta.org. 2. You're a 7th grade science teacher with 20 students with IEPs out of a class of 34. Is this legal? The answer is also yes. This is also not an ideal situation, but there's nothing in ed code to limit the number of students with IEPs in a general education settings. The only way to alter this might be to add language in the bargaining agreement. However, any language put in the contract cannot prevent students with IEPs from going into the general education classroom, or you could potentially be in violation of state and federal laws. Aside from the collective bargaining agreement, the United States Department of Education does recommend that separately IEP teams and other school personnel should be able to demonstrate that consistent with the provisions in the child's IEP, they are providing special education and related services and supplementary aids and services, making program modifications, providing supports for school personnel, and allowing for appropriate accommodations that are reasonably calculated to enable a child to make progress appropriate in light of the child's circumstances and enable the child to have the chance to meet challenging objectives. If there are so many students with IEPs in a classroom that a teacher is not able to meet the requirements of the IEP, they could ask for additional support, as is their right to in the IEP process under supports for school personnel. So now that we have covered class size, let's talk about caseload. Caseload refers to the students with IEPs that an educator, such as a school psychologist, resource teacher, or speech-language pathologist, might be in charge of providing services and holding IEP meetings for. There are only several situations where caseload is in ed code. For speech-language pathologists, there are several places in the regulations and statute that cover this. For special ed teachers, there's only one place. So let's talk about SLPs first. The maximum caseload for a speech and language specialist providing services exclusively to individuals with exceptional needs between the ages of 3 and 5 years, inclusive as defined in section 56441.11 or 56026, shall not exceed a count of 40, as seen here. For some small districts, it might be that an SLP is handling services for students in this age group and in K-12. The Special Education Division issued a letter to address this in 2009. In the case of the speech therapist situation in this letter, the Special Education Division recommends a prorated caseload. For speech therapists working with other age groups, the average caseload for SLPs in a SELPA, or Special Education Local Plan area, shall not exceed 55 cases unless the local plan specifies a higher average caseload and the reasons for the greater average caseload. You can find your SELPA plan usually online on their website. Additionally, referral and assessment are not considered part of the 55 caseload definition unless an IEP is developed and services are provided pursuant to sections 3051.1A2. For the special education teacher, caseloads only apply to a specialist or resource specialist who work with students with IEPs, who are in general education the majority of the day. California Ed Code 56362 describes the resource specialist program and definition of caseload in detail. Even if your district does not call you a resource teacher, depending on the types of services you're providing students, your job could still fit the definition as laid out in the Ed Code. It is important to note that the number in SACE is not what is legally determined as caseload. In the case of the specialist, the definition of caseload is found in Ed Code 56362.1. The caseload limit for RSP teachers or specialists that fit this definition is 28. Not all cases are exactly the same, so it's always best to talk to your CTA primary contact staff person about your situation. If you have a caseload over 28 and feel your district is in error, talk to your association. There is a process for a short-term waiver, but the district is required by law to work with your association on that waiver and get their approval. The district also has to have your approval. The waivers go directly to the State Board of Education for review and can be approved with conditions, or denied. CTA is working hard on a regular basis to review these waivers to ensure that the rights of educators and the association have been considered. If your district is asking you to sign a waiver, contact your primary contact staff person immediately. There are many situations that we may not have covered today. One of the benefits of CTA membership is that you always have an expert who is there to advocate for you and to find the answers. Thank you for watching.